right, with that, we have question 11.
Hey, I'm Sharon Madsen. I'm the consultant supporting the disability category of specific learning disability and resources related to specially designed instruction. Question 11 asks, can the timelines ever be extended beyond the 60-day requirement? I chose this question because we frequently get timeline questions when IEP teams are considering specific learning disability as a disability category, and timelines are an important requirement for all evaluations. The answer to this question begins with stating, yes, there are 3 exceptions to the 60 calendar day evaluation timeline. And these exceptions are when a parent of a student repeatedly fails or refuses to produce the student for the evaluation. The second one is a student enrolls in a school of another LEA after the 60 calendar day timeline has begun, but before a determination of eligibility or continuing eligibility by the student's previous LEA. Or third, there's a written agreement with the parent to extend the timeline to complete the evaluation of a student suspected of having a specific learning disability, in which case you'd use Form M3. It's important to note that LEA should complete the evaluations as soon as possible. And of course, timeline extensions cannot be used to unnecessarily delay special education evaluations. So I also chose a similar question in the bulletin related to question 11, and this is question 12, which asks, can the timeline be extended if the IEP team finds that additional information is needed after the 60-day timeline has started? And the answer to this is generally no. It's really important during the review of existing data to determine all additional information needed to complete the evaluation so that data can be collected within that 60-day timeline. However, if the team finds additional information is needed after reviewing the existing data and before the evaluation is complete, the team can amend the notice and consent to conduct additional assessments. So for initial evaluation, you're looking at Form IE3, and for a reeval, RE5. And then using this, you'd request parental consent to collect the additional data or other information. In such cases, though, the 60-day timeline may not be extended to collect additional information unless one of the 3 allowable exceptions we just discussed applies.
Hi, my name is Rita Fuller. I'm the Family Engagement Consultant on the Special Education team. Question number 16 asks, as a member of the IEP team, what is the role of parents during the evaluation for special education? I chose this question because oftentimes parents and family members are outnumbered on the IEP team. Parents may share their information for evaluations, but feel it is not always listened to, considered, or even used in the IEP development stage. LEAs are required to engage parents and utilize the information parents bring to the IEP team so families can feel they are an equal partner on the IEP team. Next slide, please. The answer to this question begins with stating parents are important and equal members of the IEP team. They are involved in the review of existing evaluation data, which may include information they have provided. At the end of the review of existing data, parents help make the decision about whether any additional assessments are needed to decide if the student has or continues to have a disability and the educational needs of the student. The answer goes on to highlight that before administering additional assessments, the LEA must seek consent from the parent. In addition, for initial evaluations, the parent must provide explicit informed consent. The answer further goes on to highlight information about the options LEAs have if a parent does not consent to an initial evaluation, as well as information about students enrolled in parentally placed private schools or homeschool students, as well as information about reevaluations. For resources on engaging parents and families in the IEP process, see the College and Career Ready IEP Family and Community Engagement section of the Wisconsin DPI webpage.
Hi, my name is Eva Kabinski, and I support the disability categories for orthopedic impairment, traumatic brain injury, and other health impairment. I also support resources supporting American Indian students receiving special education services and assist Wisconsin DPI with educator licensing and special education teacher preparation programs. Question number 23 asks, can an LEA ever delay child find for a student suspected of having a disability and needing special education? When we use the term LEA, LEA stands for Local Education Agency, which includes public school districts and 2R and 2X charter schools in Wisconsin. I chose this question because this question is one that comes up repeatedly in the calls that I get from both parents and educators, as well as something that came up when I first started my work as a school psychologist back in the 1990s. The answer to this question begins with stating no. An LEA may not delay a child find for a student suspected of having a disability and needing special education. This question goes on to highlight that districts cannot delay an evaluation because they feel they need to first do screening, but screening is a universal process used with groups of children to identify who may need further evaluation. In order to determine the existence of a delay in development or a particular disability. It also cannot be delayed because the student has not completed general education interventions as part of an LEA's response to an intervention process before initiating an evaluation. They also cannot delay an evaluation because the referral was received in the summer and there is staff unavailability. And last but not least, the LEA cannot delay child find for a student because of a school closure order or continuing virtual instruction due to COVID-19.
All right, thank you. Before we go on to the evaluation process, Paula, is there anything you would want to highlight on any of the previous questions or that section of the bulletin?
No, I think everybody's doing a great job. I will just point out that it's really interesting hearing the reasons folks pick these questions, and I'm hoping they're resonating with the audience who are listening in on them. And I think there's nothing I have to add. That's great. Thank you.
All right, let's go on to the evaluation process.
Hi, my name is Michelle O'Gork. I'm a statewide early childhood coordinator, and I chose question number 27. Must a referral for a special education evaluation specify a suspected disability category by name? So I choose this question because thinking that a referral must have a disability category on it appears to be a myth from the past for me. I remember when I started over 25 years ago, yes, I'm a little bit old, we used to put on the actual evaluation forms, this is a speech evaluation. This is an autism evaluation. And I still think some of that is around today. So let's take a look at the answer. The answer is no. You don't need to specify a suspected disability category by name. The referral, you must include the reason why the person believes that this is a child with a disability. Referrals, they start conversations about the concerns and the potential needs of a student, but they do not, and I want to reiterate, they do not predetermine a disability category. After looking at all the data and the information from your comprehensive evaluation, then the IEP team addresses the suspected disability categories.
This is Eva Kabinski again, and I also chose question number 28. Can a referral for an initial special education evaluation be denied? This is another question that I get oftentimes. And that is part of the reason that it was selected, because we want to make sure everyone knows the answer to this question. So the answer to this question states emphatically that no, all referrals must be processed. The LEA must notify the parents that the LEA received a referral to evaluate their child to determine whether the child is eligible for special education and related services, and if so, identify the student's disability-related needs. And that's where you would want to look at DPI form IE1, Notice of Receipt of Referrals and Start of Initial Evaluation. The answer to this question goes on to highlight that the date upon which the LEA receives the referral begins a 15 business day timeline to notify the parents of the need for additional testing and request consent to conduct the testing, or notify the parents that no additional testing is necessary to complete the evaluation of the student.
Hi, this is Eva Shaw, the other Eva on the special education team at DPI, and I support the disability categories of autism and emotional behavioral disability. I also support resources related to social and emotional learning and positive behavioral supports and interventions for students with IEP. Question 30 asks, what is the purpose of the review of existing data? And I chose this question because the review of existing data is the foundation for a comprehensive evaluation. It is the planning phase of the evaluation where we ask questions early about what we know and what we need to know about a student's strengths, potential barriers, and needs. It also underlies the importance of digging deep and being comprehensive early on in the process. For example, the written referral may state that the student struggles with emotional regulation. The team could stop there and plan assessments for just that area, but in further discussion and the review of existing data, such as grade level reading data, the team might also learn the student demonstrates needs in reading comprehension. They would then plan additional assessments in reading. Jenny Bibler also spoke to the importance of the review of existing data in her response to question 7, about only evaluating areas addressed in the written referral. So going on, the answer to this question begins with stating, the review of existing data is the process of looking at existing data and other information about a student to decide if additional data are needed as part of an initial special education evaluation or reevaluation. The question goes on to highlight that the student's IEP team, which includes the parent, compiles existing data to determine if more information is needed to make decisions about whether a student has or continues to have a disability and to identify the student's educational needs. The review is not limited by the scope of the written referral, and the team members should work collaboratively to compile the information needed to evaluate any areas of concern and potential categories of disability. The review is complete when the IEP team has determined what additional assessment data and other information is needed, if any, and how that information will be collected.
Hello again, this is Jenny Bibler, and another question I selected is question number 31. Question 31 asks, who needs to be a part of the review of existing data? I selected this question because it's important to remember to include additional community partners along with parents and school staff as part of the review of existing data process. Next slide. The answer to the question begins by stating the IEP team and other qualified professionals, as determined by the LEA, are part of the review of existing data. The LEA assigns an IEP team to conduct the review. The answer goes on to highlight that when collecting the information to be reviewed, the IEP team may need to gather information from individuals who are not technically assigned to the team, but have valuable information that is important and helpful in addressing the specific educationally relevant questions that the team has for a particular student. These people may include, but not be limited to, physicians, caregivers, and private therapists. For children participating in early childhood programs, the team may want to include information gathered from child care providers, Head Start teachers, private preschool staff, previous birth to 3 providers, and extended family members who act as caregivers, such as grandparents. Because preschool children may attend programs in the community and not actually in the public school system, these people can provide information that includes the child's daily routine, how the child transitions throughout the day, and how they interact with other children and adults. Besides including the parent and the student, if appropriate, this additional information may also be considered as the team compiles and reviews the data to make decisions about additional assessments.
Hello, this is Michelle again. I chose question 33. So can an LEA develop a standard protocol of additional assessments that are always administered for specific areas of need or disability categories? I chose this question because many times when I'm speaking with evaluators, they'll indicate that these are the required assessment tools that we have to use for autism. These are the required assessment tools that we have to use for STD. So let's take a look at the answer. The answer is no. When evaluators or IEP team members have required standard assessment protocols, they're not looking at the children's individual needs and circumstances to determine the appropriate data, information, and assessments that are added. However, a district can maintain a list of recommended tools to assess achievement and functional skills for eligibility purposes. So we always need to keep in mind that when we need to look at each and every child individually, and we need to choose assessment tools that address the child's unique needs and circumstances. By not being pigeonholed into a set of required predetermined assessment tools, for eligibility purposes, your assessments are going to be much richer, more comprehensive, and truly more individualized.
Hi again, this is Jenny Bibler, and another common question related to the review of existing data is question number 34. Question 34 asks, to what degree are data analyzed during the review of existing data? I chose this question because many times an IEP team unintentionally makes label-driven decisions during the review of existing data, that step of the evaluation process. They start to make label-driven decisions about specific impairment areas, potential eligibility decisions, and even possible special education services. Next slide. The answer to the question begins by stating, the review of existing data is limited to gathering existing information to make a decision about whether any additional data is needed to complete an individualized and comprehensive evaluation of the student. The answer goes on to highlight, the purpose of their review is to help plan the evaluation and not to analyze findings to make eligibility decisions. The information collected from both existing and new assessment results is analyzed and discussed during the actual evaluation meeting. It is in the evaluation meeting that decisions are made regarding eligibility, continued eligibility, and the disability-related needs that will be addressed through the development of the IEP.
Hello again, this is Stacy Heckendorf again. My second question that I selected is question number 36 that asks if the IEP team decides additional information is needed that must be collected by an outside evaluator, for example, a medical evaluation, does the parent have to pay for the assessment? I selected this question as although many parents will provide medical information as part of the special education evaluation, they are not required to do so. Many districts allow families to use their insurance and do not always share with the parent that the school district or LEA is ultimately responsible for obtaining the medical information if that medical information is needed to determine special education eligibility. So the answer to this question begins with stating no. The LEA is responsible for the full cost of the assessment. A special education evaluation is conducted at no cost to the parent. Thus, the school district or the LEA is ultimately responsible for obtaining the medical information if that medical information is needed to determine if a student meets the criteria for a particular disability category.